It's official. The upcoming UFC Fight Night has finally got its headline matchup, and it's going to be an exciting bout in the bantamweight division. The two fighters entering the octagon are going to be veteran Marlon Vera and former bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz. We'll be covering the upcoming Fight Night and headliners, as well as other UFC news in today's video. First up, the headline. The next UFC Fight Night in America is slated to take place on the 13th of August. After filing in the rest of the bouts with fighters, the UFC has finally confirmed its headline matchup for the event. It might come as a surprise to some, but the fight's actually going to take place in the bantamweight division, and it'll be headlined by Marlon Vera and Dominick Cruz. Both Vera and Cruz are currently ranking in the top 10 list of the bantamweight division across the entire globe. Vera sits at the number 4 position, while Cruz sits at still quite respectable number 9. However, if Cruz wins this fight, it's likely that he'll jump up a few positions in the list. Now, Vera's journey. It's been a long road for Marlon Chito Vera to get to this point. Soon facing down Cruz in the octagon, he's got a long list of bouts under his belt already, having entered the octagon for professional fights almost 30 times already. His win-loss record sits at 21-7, so there's no denying Vera deserves to sit up at the top of his division. Vera became the first man to put down Sean O'Malley, the only person in fact to do so as of yet. After that fight, he went on to win 3 of the next 4 of his bouts. The only loss came from former champion Jose Aldo at the end of 2020. Since then, though, Vera's had 3 bouts, and he's won every single one of them. His second to last fight was with former bantamweight champion Frankie Edgar, which he won by knocking Edgar out with a vicious frontal kick. Now he's looking to add another win against a former champion in his fight with Dominick Cruz. If Vera wins his fight against Cruz, he might find himself in the running for a chance at the division's title. Regardless of whether he gets the title shot or not, Vera's already eagerly anticipating the next fight months before he gets into the octagon for his next scheduled bout. He's already taken aim at a number of different fighters, including Peter Yan. It's clear that Vera puts his name down in UFC history in any way he can. Another shot for Cruz. Unlike Vera, this fight is barely even comparable to the height of Dominick Cruz's career. He's been at the top before, way back in 2011 when he was the crowned champion of the bantamweight division. At that time, he was also considered one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. But most don't remember him for that. Instead, Cruz has been relegated to the halls of missed opportunities. Since his heyday in 2011, he's only been in the total of 7 fights. That's less than a fight a year. Why was that the case? Well, he'd suffered from a number of injuries in the years following his reign as the bantamweight champion. Between 2011 and today, he'd had 3 separate 3-year layoffs. It might seem like so much time away from the octagon might dull one's skills, but after 5 years, he's since been champion of UFC. Cruz came back to the octagon and took the title from TJ Dillashaw once again. We had to mention that he lost it half a year later, but the point still stands. Cruz never loses it, even when he's out of the game for ages. He might have had a terrible run of things over the past decade, but that doesn't really come across when you take a look at his track record. Cruz had a win-loss record of 24-3, which is amazing for somebody that isn't consistently in the octagon, and who's now close to hitting 40 in age. He won his last 2 fights against heavy hitters like Casey Kenny and Pedro Munhoz. In the latter fight, many watched Cruz fight like a champ, hearkening back to the days when he was in his prime. It's led a lot of people to believe that this might be one of the best comeback stories in MMA history that's currently in progress. If Cruz can take down Vera, he might have shown the higher-ups of the UFC that he's worthy of a shot at the title once more. Considering the hype for his potential comeback, this could also mean great ratings for a headline title card if he does get that shot. Now in other news, Marlon Vera disses O'Malley. As we mentioned before, Marlon Vera is the only man that's put down Sean O'Malley to date. That no doubt comes with a sense of superiority and mutual vested interest in each other's careers. Whenever someone's record is tarnished like this, it's more often than not leads to a rivalry developing. Rivalries are good for business, and it looks like Vera might be trying to get one off the ground. In a recent interview, Vera criticized O'Malley's upcoming bout with Pedro Munhoz. According to Vera, the UFC purposefully gave O'Malley a fight in which he had an advantage, because Munhoz just doesn't have the same reach and height that O'Malley does, though the subject in his sentences sources was the UFC, with them being stated to have given O'Malley the fight for his benefit. It was clear that Vera was taking a dig at O'Malley. Vera jokingly said O'Malley got an easier fight because if it was any different, he would complain and make excuses saying that he got a tough opponent. It's definitely one of those classic disses that try to drive up hype for a potential matchup, and there's already evidence that Vera's between wanting that fight. In fact, in his own words, Vera said that the UFC offered him a rematch with O'Malley 3 fights prior, and he was actually up for it. Unfortunately for those that did want to see the two square off again, he never heard back. There might not be any official word on any upcoming O'Malley versus Vera rematch, but it's only a matter of time before they put O'Malley back into the ring with the man that gave him his only loss. Next, Bisping speaks on Vera v. Cruz. Recently, Michael Bisping, former 2-time UFC middleweight champion, uploaded a video on his YouTube channel discussing the upcoming Vera v. Cruz bout. In the video, Bisping discusses what audiences might expect to see in the bout, but made sure to emphasize that as a good friend of both Vera and Cruz, he wasn't going to make a prediction as to who would win the fight. He specifically said that it couldn't do so because the abuse he would suffer would be unbearable, particularly from Cruz. Another reason for why he wasn't interested in calling the fight was because he might be the one to provide commentary on it when the bout does happen. If he calls it now, it might come back to bite him when he commentates on the bout. Apart from the levity and the technical discussion of the bout, Bisping did also comment on the careers and work ethics of both fighters. In his opinion, both fighters have a good chance of going forward to fight for the belt after the winner is decided. He went on to say that Cruz is getting on in his career with the greatest of respect and that he would definitely be inducted into the UFC's Hall of Fame. In relation to Marlon Vera, Bisping described him as being obsessed with becoming a world champion, calling him a hungry contender that's hardly rests. He went on to qualify the word obsessed by listing out some of Vera's hyperactive behaviors, and we've got to say, it definitely fits the definition. Lastly, could Ronda Rousey unretire? Ronda Rousey is probably the single greatest thing to happen to professional women's MMA, bringing interest into the sport into the mainstream thanks to her amazing run of bouts in the octagon. Her win-loss record as it stands is 12-2, which is quite respectable, especially considering those losses were the final bouts in her career. You see, those 2 losses were so devastating, having been knocked out in both, that Rousey finally thought it was time to hang up her wraps. She's now a professional wrestler, having signed with the WWE, but in a recent interview on Kurt Angle's show, she expressed that she might be interested in coming back to the octagon for a single person. That person is Gina Carano, the former MMA fighter herself. Rousey named her because Carano was actually the person that got Rousey into MMA. So in Rousey's words, it's more out of respect that she'd want to fight her than anything else. It's like meeting your hero after years of training to be like them so that you have the chance to get their approval. This isn't the first time Rousey said this, but we hope it's the time it's finally heard. That's a wrap for this video. Who do you think is going to win between Vera and Cruz? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.